Transitioned from the way you had been singing to have to sing differently.
Singing on more my natural octave,
right.
Almost like speaking on Funhouse.
Right.
And the first album. Yeah, it was really difficult, and it kind of became like this quest for manhood. You know, it was like, can I fight the guitar from outer space or something? It was okay, you know. And I was trying to do. I always loved Little Richard and that ripping, or Mitch Ryder, that ripping sort of, that ability to shred a vocal, and I didn't have that physicality, but I tried to do it in other ways, and mostly speaking. I don't sing many notes on that album. On the two ballads, I sing more. The rest of it, there's no real melody to my part on Search and Destroy, but when I go out and play it now, everybody sings along. So.
Would you ever get to a point where you would lose your voice entirely from singing that way?
I used to lose my voice doing it all the time. There were only a few proper performances that I ever did vocally of that particular number. It's one of those things, there were a few numbers in that group where I was pig-headedly trying to go beyond what was possible for me. But isn't that life? You know, sometimes you want to go beyond.
That's the Stooges, I think.
Yeah, so I sang it well on the take there, and I sang it well at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because I knew I had to. Better be good.
So Jim, the thing that hit me the most was if somebody was going to do a documentary or a film about an artist's life that was making music today, there would be tons of footage and you would have tons to choose from. You didn't have that luxury to make this film. There was so little, in some ways, archival footage of the Stooges performing. And I wanted you to talk about where you guys got the footage from that you did find, and how you had to frame this differently when you went to make this film because of that.
Yeah, it's hard because also hardcore Stooges fans have seen pretty much almost everything. So, yeah, we searched very hard for new footage and photographs. We got a lot of help from Ben Blackwell from Third Man, who was incredibly helpful and led us to a lot of stuff that people had, and he's kind of a collector of footage. So he was extremely helpful, and then we just had really good, helpful research being done. One of the people here that helped, Ariel de Sanfal, is here tonight, and she worked for over a year just clearing stuff. And you know, a lot of it was like, okay, these really great photographs by this guy that's living in a trailer outside of Santa Fe that doesn't have a phone and doesn't want to talk to anybody, or, you know, it was a lot of really digging for stuff. But, and then putting it together, I really have to credit the whole rhythm of the film. A lot of it really came from our editors, and I would say, you know, illustrate this sequence, illustrate what is being talked about. And Afonso Gonçalves and Adam Kernitz, our dynamic duo of editors, would find things and try different things to also keep the film playful and in the style of the Stooges' music, which is wild, funny, emotional, sometimes very primitive, and in other ways very sophisticated, you know. So it was a way we tried to find all these things and build something, and then we discovered through our producer who's also here, Carter Logan, James Kerr, the animator from Montreal, who we fell in love with his work, so we asked him to animate certain things. Yeah, he was fantastic. Because there isn't footage of Scotty wrecking the truck under the bridge and stuff like that. So, you know, it was a combination of, and you know, it's got my name, my film, blah, 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 but you know, this is a film, we collaborated very carefully with our small unit of collaborators, and it was made by us, you know, so.
You kept the people, the interviews, the number of people in this film to a very small number, the most tightly knit group the Stooges and people just outside this group. Why was that?
Well, I didn't want to do the formula of getting a lot of outside people to comment on the Stooges, so I wanted it to be the family, the Stooges themselves, Mike Watt, of course, also, and Steve McKay, and Danny Fields, who's really a family member of the Stooges, and Kathy Ashton, who's literally a family member, you know. And I wanted that because, and I had a hard time stopping myself from two people, David Bowie and John Cale, who I love and admire, but I knew that if I interviewed them, I'd use it because I love them, you know, but I didn't want them, so I had to force myself not to do them as well. But I didn't want outside people talking about the Stooges. It's kind of become a formula.
Do you remember the first time you heard the Stooges?
Yeah, I'm from Akron, Ohio. I first heard the Stooges, the first album in 1969, I believe, late 69. I was 16, and I also heard the MC5 at that period, and these were really bands that spoke to me and a small group of friends, because it wasn't California hippie music, it wasn't British stuff, and it was working class, ass-kicking, incredible rock and roll, you know, so it had a big effect, still does for me.
So how did this film come to be? Did you ask Jim to do this film?
Yes, just simply. I asked him. You should try it sometime. Pick a great director and say, hey, will you make a movie? You'd be surprised.
Like he did with Ron, though, he gave me some weed. You know?
Jim, given that you were such a fan of the Stooges and a friend of Iggy's, did you have any reservations about doing a film about somebody close to you?
I didn't actually. My dilemma was, how do I do it? What do I do? How do I start? What will it be? You know, but immediately my brain was thinking, how and what would it be? So it was never, I mean, I did get nervous later when we sent Jim a cut of the film when it was close to being done, and really I thought, okay, if he calls me up and says, well, this kind of sucks, you know, I'm just gonna put it away. I can't, because, you know, he said, well, you're a Stooges fan, you know, I'd love it if you made a Stooges film. And there can be and will be maybe other films about the Stooges, but this is our version.
Did your approach change as you started to make the film? I assume you had a certain idea of what you wanted to do, but did that change at all as this film started to come together?
Yeah, for sure, but all films for me change constantly, and even the films I write as a script, I write only one draft of the script and then start working on it, and it changes by the locations, the actors, the collaborators. It's changing, and then it's finally made in the editing. So yes, it changed a lot, but first having our interrogation with Jim
was that the first thing you did?
That was the first thing we did, and then I had it on paper as a transcript, so I was kind of editing the paper version of it to try to find his oral history, and then started adding things on. And luckily, I have to say, the two editors were not just people that, hey, would you like to work on a Stooges film? Do you know about the Stooges? They were hardcore Stooges fans and great editors. So that was like pretty amazing. And Carter Logan, my collaborator and the producer also, we were all Stooges fans. You know, we loved the Stooges, so it wasn't hard to want to make something celebrating them.
While you were working on the film, Iggy, did you two have much conversation while the film was being put together, or were you pretty distant from it, Iggy?
I stayed way out of it. You know, if Jim had asked me, hey, Iggy, will you write a song about me? If I said yeah, then I don't want to hear anything about what kind of song he wants. You know? That was my tactic, was just not to interfere at all. I would call him every 6 months or so and just say, "How's the film coming?" That was it.
It took a long time, and there were, to finance it and gather the stuff and do other projects in between. We made Only Lovers Left Alive, a lot of it here in Detroit.
Set in Detroit. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made Patterson also, so we had other things too. But he always said, "Look, don't worry about that. It's not a promo film. It's the Stooges story, so there's not a rush on it." So that took a lot of pressure, so that we could build the film.
Iggy, did you see any of it until almost the final cut? Did he see any of it along the way, or was it only that close to the final cut?
No, I didn't see anything, and I was surprised that he sent me the final cut. I didn't expect it or demand it. If he just called me and said, "The film's done, I'm sending you the release, sign it," I would have done that. I trust him.
Was it?
I admire him.
Was it emotional for you to watch it?
Was it emotional when I finally saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah, in certain places. It was funny. I sat at a kitchen table with one of those little devices, the small screen with a time code on it, watching it. And almost immediately at first I'm like, "Oh no, we're living with our mothers." Oh no. But I immediately capisce this was I saw the arc of the thing as it developed, and I was basically, my main emotion was just delight and intrigue at, okay, what footage are they going to use next from the wider society to illustrate this thing and this story and tie it in, and that's what I loved about it. I loved seeing the footage of the butt end of a jet plane to illustrate my exit, or the Three Stooges jamming on their little instruments, all that sort of thing. I just thought that was great, But if I had any of the usual, I go through every time I'm exposed to our group, especially in private when there's no one around. I go through some cathartic emotion because we did have a rough time getting our point across.
Jim, you started the film as Iggy said, at their worst point. Why did you decide to start the film that way?
Well, I was realizing, wow, the Stooges, Funhouse, Raw Power are some of the most incredible gifts to rock and roll ever, right?
Yes.
And yet they had given these things, and then they're 23, 24 years old, and the world has basically pissed on them, and they're going home to their moms, And that really struck me. I didn't even make my first feature film till I was like 26. And I thought, look what they achieved and what the world said at that time. So I just was drawn to start with that because it was kind of emotional to me to realize, wow, look what they gave and look how they were treated.
Iggy, does it surprise you, all the interest in the Stooges today?
Does it what?
Does it surprise you that there's so much interest in the Stooges today? I mean, let's look at Iggy Pop's life this year so far. You've done 51 shows, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put out a new album. There's this film, the Grammy Foundation. So...
The show of drawings coming up in New York that he posed for.
And so this is an incredibly big year for you, and the spotlight is on you and the Stooges, and especially with this film, Jim, it's going to shine a light, especially for a new generation that knows nothing about the Stooges and are curious. This is going to be an incredible education for them. Why do you think all these years later there is this interest now, the way it is, in you and the Stooges?
There's some sort of sincerity in there somewhere, some sort of little spark of something. I just don't know what. I wouldn't know what. Something going on. I don't know. Or that resonates, and it surprises me every day. It doesn't surprise me intellectually, but it surprises me personally and emotionally every time I encounter someone and they share with me their feelings. And for every single human being, it's different, you know. And somebody might have, hey, I was at your show 47 years ago, and you know, whatever. That's one thing. And for someone else, they might have something they want to tell you about how they feel, or, you know, I played in Buenos Aires a few nights ago, and I got a little big for my britches, so it was a big show, and I said in Spanish that I was a little lonesome and I wish some people would come on stage, and the bouncers, and one of the guys, I thought I was going to get, you know, asphyxiated. He joking me, but it was with love. And it was like really scary, but I treasured it. I treasured
it. Well, speaking of which, it looked a little dangerous for you from time to time. Throwing yourself into the crowd. I mean, you must have surprised your own self up there.
Well, sure. That's just the way my particular life seems to be going. You know, that's it, you know.
You had gotten hurt a few times.
Hmm?
You had gotten hurt a few times.
Well, I get hurt all the time, but that's what I do. Yeah, emotionally also, that's part of life, I think, but I'm older now, so I try to give it 50-50. Like I try to be sensible, half sensible. That's pretty reasonable.
Do you know when you're going to be half sensible? Like, if you get to the edge of the stage, you might not jump?
I don't jump as much. I jumped. I did 2 tours this year. I did the first tour on my own, and it was my own theater tour, and I wasn't playing any Stooges material, but this little perverse person I carry in my head was going, you better show them that you're going to jump, and that you could jump out of a lot, and then you could jump and jump again, you know. So I jumped at least 1.5 times per gig all across America and Europe, and that's pretty tough. But then my own tour after that, people know, and besides, the stage is 15 foot high, you'll die, you know, whatever. So I didn't jump so much.
Taking better care of yourself.
I don't really understand these processes, you know.
I wanted to talk to you about one photo that I think is absolutely classic, and that is the photo of you and the MC5 getting signed to Elektra Records at the same time.
Yeah.
What was that like to finally get to this record company, and not that it worked out all that well, but you finally get to this point?
Well, it did. Elektra was good, very good to us. But
they
yeah, it's okay that they, come on, I mean, you can't expect a suit not to be a suit, but still, they were independent suits. They were junior suits, and they were pretty good.
Danny was good to you guys.
Yeah, you know, at one point, they wanted to hold on to me and make me into some sort of a teen singer or something.
Seriously?
But they couldn't find me. They have all these memos of the legal department to whatever, and they just couldn't find me stuff. So they were the guy who owned the company, Jack Holtzman, had a classical education. He was a real mensch, and he loved music. And so he just, you know, as I mentioned in the film, he just gave me a camera and said, you know, good luck, bon voyage, and never tried to put the thumb on me. And they did do a nice job. They gave us a nice logo in the writing. Sometimes it's good. We had some good ideas, but none of us were fully civilized individuals. And when you're not, sometimes it's good to meet someone who is, and to have an exchange. And I think we had a good exchange with Elektra Records. And I think we had a good exchange with David Bowie, more than, not so much with Main Man, but in his interest in the group, and that trip to London, which became really a cultural exchange. So I'm okay with that. You know.
We should talk
And
about
I'm
David.
sorry, I interrupted your question.
No, that was great.
But can I say one thing too?
Yeah, of
That
course.
photograph is amazing, who is in it, you know? It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I also got to say one thing, because our film, and John Sinclair's in that photograph with the five, you know, and Danny Fields. And our film doesn't quite, for me, give the respect that I feel for John Sinclair.
Sinclair did a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we make light a little bit of the White Panther Party and that thing, but I gotta say, John Sinclair was culturally a kind of iconoclast and a cultural revolutionary, and I really respect him. And I think he brought a lot of outside jazz to the awareness to these musicians, and quite an incredible figure. So,
John, I mean, I'm allowed to say John was kind of a loose cannon, because I'm a loose cannon, and so I can say that about him. But he did so much. I wouldn't have never listened to John Coltrane if it wasn't for John Sinclair, and he shared a platform with us. But that shot was taken in an old Victorian house on what was called Fraternity Row on Hill Street, on the U of M, on the edge of the U of M campus in Ann Arbor. And I mean, picture anyone's reaction when these fellas came from Detroit and rented that house. There were about 17 of them. And John had these little postcards made up, you know, exact postcard size, and they were purple, and they had a charging White Panther on the back. And he had a lot of them. And you turned over the postcard, and it basically said, "Hi, we are the White Panther Party, and our program is rock and roll, dope, fucking in the streets." Now, this is Ann Arbor, Michigan. You know, these are the spreading oak trees of academia, the little brown jug after the game. The Korean War veterans running the police department, and I just looked at that thing and I said, "Oh my God, this is like there's trouble in River City." So that was over to, that's theater at that point, you know. So, but it was great, and there was a great group of people, and I don't know if I told Jim today, but that house where we signed that was always good. When I was hungry, I could always kind of sneak into the back pantry of that house and get a PB&J, you know. So they were nice people and generous people. And I'm sorry, but his partner Lenny Sinclair.
Hey, Lenny.
Prescient, serious, German artist.
amazing footage that she
Such
has
beautiful.
given to the world of this period
Yeah.
too.
Jim, was any of her footage used in this film?
Yeah, there's footage of hers.
Wonderful. Yeah, because she used to shoot all the footage of the MC5, and then she took an interest in the Stooges at the same time.
She sure did. There are a lot of terrific people in that group of people. All the road crews and the communal. It was a nice bunch of people, but
You know, John,
Just like us.
just
We found each other.
the other night, when Iggy was at the Majestic for the Grammy Foundation with Don Was, I don't know if anybody was there, but it was a pretty special night. It was an amazing night, and one of the things that Don Was said is he cited, when he was asked what changed his life, he said he saw John Sinclair in a purple suit, standing outside, handing out those postcards.
The same postcards, oh my God.
And that changed his life. It was seeing John Sinclair and the impact that he
I mean,
had.
that's a surrealist act. You know, that's Tristan Zara or something, or a Dadaist, you know, I mean, oh my God. And eventually, you know, it got him some attention, some unwanted attention that led to difficulties for him because
You are saying this so nicely.
What?
You're saying this all so nicely.
Well, you know, hey, you know.
He means to say they put his ass in jail.
There it is. You know, John Sinclair was put in jail for 2 marijuana cigarettes for 10 years. And that court case, which is a fascinating court case, influences all of us today because it led to the wiretapping and Watergate and Nixon. And all of that started with John Sinclair. And Lenny Sinclair fought like crazy to get him out of jail. She was tireless when it came to getting John Sinclair out of jail. But it is a fascinating story. She said to me when we talked she was the Kresge Foundation's eminent artist this year. So there's a lot of attention deservedly given to her this year. And she said, there is a movie to be made about this story. Because Judge Damon Keith was a part of it as well. When the government takes the judge to court, basically,
Yeah.
it's a very interesting story.
They did a job.
They did.
You know.
did. As Lenny Sinclair, this is the last thing I'll say about it, as Lenny Sinclair says, do you really think when Watergate happened, they were going to take that they were going to put those wiretaps in? She said they were going to take those wiretaps out. Because they knew what was about to happen legally. So it's a fascinating story. This might be a good time to open up questions to the audience. We don't have a microphone out there, so if you would shout, please, and I can repeat the question. We can do it that way. Okay, you there, sir.
Hi. My thought man, I just want to know if you get a tour.
Iggy, are you going to tour? More? Is Iggy going to tour more?
Detroit, for sure. I mean,
He did a show at the Fox in April.
Yeah, I was here in April.
You put in a big year. Are you going to take a little break?
Just kind of.
Kind
I
of.
hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in demand.
A little less for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I hope.
Sir, right here.
My mom was your camp counselor at Varsity Day Camp.
In the film, when I cured the marijuana in the laundry, that was in my varsity day camp duffel. So, you know, varsity, yeah.
Annie Wisniewski says hello.
I love Annie Wisniewski and all the Wisniewskis.
She said you and Howdy Holmes pulled her tube top down, and Mr. Wiz locked you and Howdy Holmes in the garage.
Well, I love Howdy Holmes, and he was a bad little boy.
You, sir, over there. In the blue shirt. Yep. Yeah, that's you.
The acoustic thing at the Majestic was unparalleled in any musical experience I've ever had. So I wanted to thank you for that. But also about 2.5 weeks ago, Grady Ballroom celebrated its 50th reunion. In fact, they had a reunion 50 years to the date from the first gig. So I know there's a doc out there, Louder Than Love. I'd hope to see you in it. So tonight, could you maybe share some of your experiences from that? Tell us.
Is that it?
Yeah.
He's talking about the Grandy Ballroom. He was asking about the Grandy Ballroom that just celebrated its 50th anniversary. He mentioned how great you were at the Majestic the other night, which was great. But he wanted you to talk about memories at the Grandy Ballroom.
Sure, at first, as that place sort of began. It was a real homemade, just a few people from the Detroit area. They were freaks, they called themselves. A guy named Jerry Youngkins was one. And they were doing a little psychedelic ballroom. And Russ Gibb was a character, kind of what I would call like a school teacher gone wrong. It became the excuse to get people in the door was that they could hire these wonderful musical groups and artists who were known and prominent and really good all over the world because they had to come through Detroit often, basically, and the agent would say, yeah, we'll send you to pick up some extra money in Detroit and maybe Chicago and maybe Ann Arbor for a quickie in the afternoon. And but the real action in that place was what they were doing for all of us in this area that wanted to try our hand at doing something on the stage. And they were that's what I really remember were the shows, the SRC, and he'd come out, okay, I think it'd be really cool if I had a suit made out of Christmas tree lights and they went on and off one week, or I'd be thinking, yeah, I want to throw a pie at somebody's face, or whatever. The MC5 might have a new sort of evangelist style testimonial intro, or whatever it was going to be. There were so many groups. If anyone out there is aware of, there was one mystery group in my head. I've never been able to find out who these guys were. They came from somewhere in outlying southern Michigan. They wore seersucker suits. It was kind of like a David Byrne approach. They were, they had 80s hair before the 80s. They had this song called Blow Me. And it went, blow me, blow me, blow me, blow me, blow me. And they looked like Weezer or something. And they were so earnest, but the song was well written. It was catchy.
Fruit of the Loom.
Fruit of the Loom? Yes. It's been driving me nuts for years.
But I got to say too, regarding the Grandy, me, Carter, and Ariel, we made a little pilgrimage yesterday to Dearborn just to meet Russ Gibb. And what another character you guys got from around here. An amazing character.
His influence is incredible. People may not know who he is, but he made a big difference in Detroit music here.
Yeah, the Grandy was laid out as a classic ballroom, Spanish style, and around the dance floor was a colonnaded horseshoe promenade. And the boys and girls, and that's what we were boys and girls, we would walk back and forth while another traffic stream went back and forth in the opposite direction, and just kind of checking each other out and nodding, and it was very genteel. It was not a rowdy place at all. There was no alcohol. That's probably one reason. It was not a bar scene in any way, shape, or form. Something very pure about it.
Anybody else right here?
Jim, you came in making this movie as like a hardcore Stooges fan, but in the process of making it, despite your fandom, was there anything that you found out that surprised you or changed your perception of the band at all?
No, not really, just smaller details, like when Jim's talking about changing his vocal register to facilitate James Williamson's kind of, filling every space up with the guitar. There were a lot of details that I learned, but pretty much, nothing really earth-shaking. I didn't quite know the importance of Harry Parch, particularly. I did know about the Once Festival. I knew about kind of avant-garde music affecting Jim through working at Discount Records and stuff. But well, I also kind of learned that I think the Ashtons and the Stooges were really gentlemen too, that I wasn't quite aware by talking to people that knew them, and I was just impressed by their being such good people, you know, which I didn't really know. And my, you know, I got to meet Ron and Scott several times after shows in the dressing room in the Reformed Stooges, but my interaction, honestly, with the Ashton brothers was like, hey, Ron, Scott, it's me, Jim, remember? Oh yeah, Jim, hey man, could you get us a beer over there? I'd bring him over maybe, thanks, dude, yeah. So that was about as far as I got to talk with them, but I love those guys, so.
Well, they just told us that we have to wrap things up. So,
Who should I vote for?
Who should he vote for? We're not.
Come on, Iggy!
Vote for me.
You got it!
Gimme Danger will be screened this coming weekend. They added another screening on Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following weekend. So tell all your friends how great this film was, if they're Stooges fans, and any
Thank you
kid that thinks they love rock and roll,